Hello there! How are you today? This is Joy KahNah, and in today's audio presentation, I wanted to share with you about the similarities and differences between two amazing groups of divine beings, our spirit guides and our angels. And the purpose for this video today is just to help you really understand the guidance that you have while you're traveling here through the earth plane, and also to help you determine how you can best work with your guidance, sort of when to work with your spirit guides and when to work with your angels, which I'm going to be discussing in part 2 of this audio presentation, which will be coming out on Friday. So if you're listening to this in the future, then it will probably already be out. So stay tuned for that video. But anyway, yeah, let's just really jump right in. And my intention for this video is that it will help you to remember what you already know, because all of us, literally all of us, we all are familiar with these concepts already. All of us as souls, we have eons of experience sitting with and working with our spirit guide, and through every single lifetime, we have experiences working with the angels as well. And so everything I'm going to be telling you today is stuff that you already know on a soul level, and I hope that it sparks some soul level memory for all of you. So today, let's start by discussing spirit guides, okay? And so just to keep this kind of simple today, I'm mostly going to be referring to what we would call your primary spirit guide. And so all of us as souls, we are here with a team of divine beings who exist in the higher realms. In fact, they exist in the realm that we came from before we incarnated. So we all have a home in the heavenly realms, if you want to think of it that way. And we spend most of our time as a soul in those higher realms with our spirit guide and teachers and our soul group and things like that. And actually, our time when we are on Earth is just a little jaunt. This is just like a little vacation. This is a little travel to the Earth plane. And, we come here with our goals and objectives for a short time, but then we return home. And so our spirit guide exists in our home plane. And it is true that we can have a collection of guides, and some of them can be really temporary, and they can come in just for a specific purpose, like to help us with a particular lesson or a relationship. But we also have a stable spirit guide, sort of the number one guide in charge, who stays with us not only from birth until the end of this life, but also who has been with us in our other incarnations as well, and who has been with us for our entire soul history. And that's what's really important. So when it comes to your spirit guide is actually a soul, just like you are. They're a soul whose makeup and whose individual soul journey was very similar to your own in almost every case. So basically, your spirit guide is a soul who walked a path that was very similar to your own path that you're on right now. And when I say similar to your own path, I mean most likely that their gifts were very, very similar. The gifts of their soul, their talents, their natural inclinations, their soul energy. And basically, your spirit guide almost definitely started sort of walking their path before you. And so they may have started incarnating long before you even emerged from source. And they have since evolved beyond the need to frequently incarnate into the physical dimensions. And so they no longer need to sort of take a human body and learn their lessons. They've really, of course, our spirit guides, they are still developing a bit, and they're still working with their gifts, but they no longer need to visit the earth plane. And so essentially, once they finish all of their travels here through the earthly dimension and they master their lessons and their gifts, the next role in their own personal personal soul evolution is then to assist another soul as a guide, and that other soul that they are assisting is you. Yes, it's you. And so it is with great pleasure that they're able to serve you, that your guide is able to serve you and help you grow and develop and evolve as a soul. And yes, so your spirit guide has probably been with you for a very, very, very long time. Most likely your guide has been with you since your very first incarnation on Earth and is still with you now. And because of this, your spirit guide, actually the relationship that you have with your guide is probably one of the closest, if not the closest relationship that you have as a soul. Your spirit guide, I can hardly put it into words, the amount of love that they have for you. Your spirit guide is really committing themselves, wholly to your personal development as a soul and to helping you to achieve your soul level objectives. They're like the best mentor, the best coach that you could ever hope for. It's really, really a wonderful thing. And so basically, your spirit guide they are the ones who are going to sit down with you prior to this lifetime. So at some point prior to the time that you incarnated as the individual that you are now, your spirit guide probably came to you when you were studying with your soul group. Your spirit guide might even be involved in teaching your soul group, just depending on their expertise. But they probably came to you when you were studying with your soul group, and they probably said, hey, listen, I think it might be time for you to practice these abilities that we've been cultivating here in the higher realms through an incarnation on Earth. And you probably don't remember it now, but you probably said, yes, wonderful. Yeah, I want an opportunity to prove to you how well I've learned these lessons and practice them in a challenging Earth situation, to really prove to myself and to you that I've mastered these things. And so then what probably happened is that your spirit guide probably said, wonderful, great, okay, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to look for some parents that you could be born to and some different life circumstances that might be a match for, what we have been studying and practicing. And so you may have been studying certain lessons of the soul, like maybe your lessons have to do with compassion towards others, or maybe your lessons have to do with using your healing abilities and having confidence and faith in your healing abilities or whatever. But basically your spirit guide would then have gone and searched the whole earth plane for parents that might be an exact match for your soul essence and your soul's goals and objectives. And then what they probably did was come back to you with a collection of options for this lifetime. And it kind of depends on your particular relationship with your guide and your arrangements, but they probably gave you, let's say, 3 to 5 different choices. And they said, okay, here are, out of all the parents available who are wanting to have a baby right now, here are, 5 sets of parents that you could be born into, and here's a little bit about what each life might look like. And then they sat with you while you tuned into and observed each of those lifetimes and decided which one felt the most exciting, the parents that you fell in love with, the life that you fell in love with, to practice and implement your soul level goals and objectives. And yes, and so your spirit guide would have sat with you and talked with you through every single option and let you know some of, what you might expect in the lifetime that you selected, and together the two of you made a plan for what kind of relationships that you were going to have in this lifetime, which soulmates you were going to meet, what challenges you were going to face, the highs, the lows, everything. Like, you and your spirit guide designed this together. And then when you were ready to actually come to Earth, it was your spirit guide who would have made sure that everything was in order and who would have made a plan with you for signs that they might give you and how they were going to work with you in this lifetime and kind of walked you to the gate, if you will. And because of, as you can see, like your spirit guide is so involved in all the details of every incarnation, it's really just an amazingly intimate relationship that you have with your guide. And they are there with you before you incarnate, right? They're helping you to prepare, and they're sharing with you their experiences as well that they faced when they were incarnating at a different time period, most likely on Earth. And yes, and basically their role in this lifetime is to almost work within your being in order to magnetically draw you to the people, experiences, and lessons that you had hoped to experience really in this lifetime, or that you'd hoped to learn in this lifetime. So their role is really sort of typified by the name itself. The spirit guide's role is to guide you. It's to guide you. And listen, guys, I think this can be easier said than done. Yeah, because a lot of times we can ignore our spirit guides, but you know what? They are just tireless, and they never ever give up on us, and they always try to lead us back to our primary path. So our spirit guides have tremendous respect for us, and I have tremendous respect for all of our guides in the way that they work for our souls. And basically, they do honor our free will while we're here. So their job is to try to guide us back, no matter what, to always guide us back to that plan that we had for this lifetime, and to guide us back to the opportunities to experience, what we hope to experience while we're here, basically. Sometimes when we get here, a lot of times we fall into patterns of behavior that are more reminiscent of our past lives, and typically our spirit guide's role is to help us evolve beyond those past life patterns, or we could just get lost or confused, or many, many things can happen once we arrive on Earth, and that's why we actually need a guide, because part of incarnating here on Earth, and I don't believe this is true for every planet, but part of incarnating here on Earth is that we go through this veil of amnesia. And so as soon as we're actually born out of our mother's womb, the forgetting starts. We have some of the memories when we're very young babies, sometimes of our past lives and stuff like that. But as you know, as you get older and your brain develops, you lose the memories of everything that happened in the higher realms and of your entire soul journey. And so without a guide, most likely you wouldn't accomplish your soul level objectives while you're here. So the guide's role is kind of to give you an opportunity to succeed on your own, and that's really important, because a guide's role is to guide you towards the people and experiences that you wished to experience, right? But their role is not to do it for you. So your spirit guide's role is not to intervene and take over in your life path, because if they do that, they're actually handicapping you as a soul. So their role is to help you help yourself in this lifetime, and to help you stay on that path, a path that you most likely have totally forgotten due to the veil of amnesia. So really the whole thing is kind of funny, right? They are like these beings. They're not really able to come here. The spirit guides don't really travel here down into this dimension. There are some exceptions, but in general, your spirit guide, they're not going to come here and knock on your door and say, hey, listen, we made this agreement, get back on path. They're not going to do that, but they kind of work within you in more subtle ways. So your spirit guide might come into your dreams and talk with you in your dream state and try to implant into your subconscious a memory of the next job that you were planning to have, or the person that you were planning to date, or remind you why. They typically will implant ideas into our mind. So I don't know if you guys have ever had the experience where maybe you're thinking about something like, I'm thinking about a concert that you're going to go to, or a movie or something like that. And all of a sudden a totally unrelated thought comes into your mind, like, I should really travel to India next summer for a silent retreat. or something like that. You know what I mean? Where it's just like totally out of nowhere. Your spirit guides usually implant those thoughts and ideas. And if you're really stuck in a problem and you come up with a really creative solution, there's a good chance that that creative solution may have been your guide and not you. But the thing is that your guide is supposed to make you think that it's you and not them, because their kind of objective is to help to empower you in a way. And so they're, like I said, they're not meant to take over things for you, but they're there to help you remember what you wanted to experience. And so their objective is to kind of blend their energy with yours and gently pull you, like a slight magnetic pull, towards the experiences that you wanted to have. And so if they're doing their job in a really good way, then you probably won't notice that they are doing it. Does that make sense? Because they want to give you the opportunity to make the right, quote unquote, right choices on your own. But they work in all kinds of ways. Sometimes they'll influence other people to say to you like exactly what you need to do. But ultimately, they've got to work in ways where you make the choice yourself. So they're not going to come into your experience and make a choice for you. And typically, your guides are not going to say, do this. They will give you a feeling, a very good feeling, a positive feeling, a loving feeling, an excited feeling when you are moving in the direction of what you wanted to do. But they're very rarely, unless something has gone terribly wrong, they're very rarely going to say, do this, this is what you need to do. So that's a little bit about spirit guides. And your spirit guide is also, I just cannot even describe how loving this connection actually is. I mean, in some ways, it's kind of like a parental connection, but not really, because your spirit guide, they love you so much more than your parents ever could. It's this love that transcends the human condition so much, but it's kind of like that role in the sense that they want to send you out into the world to have these experiences, and then after this lifetime, your guide will meet you when you transition into the higher realms, and they will go over with you every single experience that you had in this lifetime. They'll sit with you and review your entire lifetime, and they don't judge you and they don't punish you. They've evolved beyond that. At one time, your guide had an ego identity, just like you may have now, but they have learned to completely quiet the ego, and they've learned not to judge. So they've transcended above that. Although they do understand what it's like to have an ego identity because of having experienced it at one time. But anyway, oh my goodness. So typically when people talk about like going through the tunnel, and then they say, like when they're passing on, or an NDE accounts, people will typically say that like a tunnel of light opened up or something like that. And they typically will say that while they're still on Earth, maybe they saw a departed loved one, somebody who was recently on Earth, like a parental figure or a grandparent or a friend that passed before them. And that's because those types of souls that were recently on Earth, they can more easily match their frequency to the frequency of Earth, and then they can travel down here. That's not really the case with our guides. Typically, some guides could go rogue and they might do things that are unusual, but generally, like, the rules of the game are that the guides stay in the higher realms and they just guide in subtle ways. So typically people will meet their guides once they have traveled into the higher realms, and when they describe that like radiant divine being that's standing there to welcome them, it's usually their spirit guide. Almost always, I would say like 99.999999999999999% of the time, it's going to be their spirit guide. And yes, they're always so happy to have you home. And yeah, again, the guide's role is to help you to help yourself and to give you opportunities to practice the skills and abilities and have the experiences that you wanted to have. So yeah, that's a little bit about your spirit guides, and everybody has a spirit guide. Your spirit guide is always with you no matter what you do. your spirit guide will never abandon you, and they're never truly mad at you. Sometimes I think that they can be really looking forward to when we embrace the path that we had chosen. But they're never mad at you. They're never going to turn their back on you. And they completely understand you. And that's the final thing I want to communicate about the guides, is that they completely understand you. You know, as it is right now, with your level of awareness of yourself while in the physical incarnation, our level of remembering about who we really are is very low. So in this moment, you know, your spirit guide definitely understands you more than you understand your own self. You know, they understand who you are beyond this lifetime. They understand the core essence of your being. They were probably there shortly after, if not at the time, that you emerged from Source and began to develop an individual identity as a soul. And yes, they are able to see how all the pieces fit together. And it kind of reminds me, like, the role of a guide. It's kind of like if you could imagine that you were traveling in an unfamiliar land and you just kind of had like a headset on or something like that, and there was somebody directing you through this land where everything was totally unusual and you couldn't tell up from down and all this stuff, and they were going to tell you kind of where you might want to walk and stuff like that, but they're in a totally different dimension. That's kind of similar to the spirit guide. It's kind of like that. So that's your spirit guide. And this is actually really different than angels, believe it or not. So again, your spirit guide's role is to help you help yourself. Now, angels are actually sort of different types of beings. So our spirit guide, like I said, our spirit guide is actually a soul, just like we're a soul, that walked a human experience at one time. Typically, that is not the case for an angel. So an angel is a type of divine being who exists solely to serve the will of God, Source, love, and their role is to help to expand goodness and love on this planet and beyond. And although the higher realms are not really hierarchical, it can sometimes be helpful to think of them in that way in order to understand. And when thinking of it as as levels or hierarchies, we could say that the angels exist at a higher level than the spirit guides. Their sort of home plane is very, very close to Source or God. And yes, and we could also say, for the sake of understanding, that while our spirit guides would have contact with guardian angels, in other words, our spirit guides may have their own guardian angel or work with or be helped by angelic beings, an angel would not have a spirit guide, because an angel is not really evolving. The angels they're not really trying to evolve their soul. They kind of are a different type of being that is born perfectly. And they don't have and never did have any sort of ego identity or sense of self. So the angels exist purely for the sake of serving God's will and serving love. And I remember once listening to a lecture. I love listening to different lectures from all different religious traditions, and this was sort of a Kabbalistic teaching. And the person who was presenting it said, an angel is born or created every time that we put a call out there for angelic support. And that the spirit of that statement really resonated to me as true, because the angels exist, again, only to serve, and that's it. And unlike our spirit guides, the angels probably don't really look at the journey of our soul. You know, they're probably not as concerned with, okay, what is his or her lesson? How does this fit in the span of lifetimes? Basically, the angels, they just hear our call, and they have so much love for us in their hearts that they come and help and answer any sincere call that will do no harm. And one of the very big differences between angels and spirit guides in terms of the rules of the game is that angels are permitted to travel here into the earth plane, and spirit guides are not. The spirit guides have to stay at home and guide us from afar. The angels can come here. And this is a really big difference. Like our spirit guides, the angels also have to respect our free will. As a matter of fact, they actually can't not really do anything to help us as much as they would like to. They can't do anything to help us that we don't specifically ask for, because they have so much respect for us, and they honor our free will choices to such a high degree. And so angels, really, the main things that they will help with is that they help to keep us comfortable while we're here. They really help in any situation where we're suffering, because their role is to help us to almost experience the love of God or love of Source while we're here. So they want to help us feel comfortable, they want to help us feel safe, and they want to help us feel loved as we travel through this dimension. And the angelic support is a wonderful, amazing sort of support. And the angels are able to assist us with almost anything. They're able to assist us with almost anything. And they don't have, like I said, they don't have any ego. They don't have any judgment. So they're not really going to judge what's important according to your path or not. They just want to help you feel the love of God while you're here in this dimension. I mean, the angels are purely beings of benevolence, and they see that many people in this world have lost their way, and that many people in this world are being hateful towards one another or harming one another, and they want to bring God's energy into this dimension. Does that make sense? So anything that you call on the angels for that is just sheerly for the sake of good, they will come down and they will help you. And so, I mean, for me, in a typical day, I call upon my angels and angelic assistants many times, sometimes as much as maybe 10, 15 times an hour. I mean, it could be hundreds of times a day. Whereas with my spirit guides, I understand that my spirit guide is guiding me according to the plan that we developed prior to this incarnation. And I understand that my guide is always there and is not going anywhere, and that they're able to self-moderate, and they know when I need more guidance or less guidance. And I do call upon my guides sometimes, especially if I'm feeling lost or confused, or I don't know what a lesson is going to be, or things like that. Maybe I can't figure out, maybe I'm just stuck in a pattern or something like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this about? How can I break through this? I'll call on my guides for that kind of stuff. But for anything else really, I'll call on the angels to help me, especially if it's anything that requires a being to actually be near me. So, for example, if I'm going to go on a car ride and I want safety and protection while driving my car, then I'm definitely going to call on the angels. If I'm dealing with a physical health issue of any kind, like I have a headache or a stomach ache and I want relief from that, then I'm definitely going to call on the angels. If I'm feeling disconnected from love, if I'm feeling in any way disconnected from love or feeling down or feeling sad, I'm going to call on the angels to please help me to feel more love, because the angels specialize, in keeping us comfortable, safe, and connected to God's loving presence. And, whereas our guides exist to help us to help ourselves with our soul evolution, the angels exist just to propagate benevolence itself. Does that make sense? So I will say there are some times where maybe I will call on the angels, and it may be that it's for a detail that I know isn't, maybe I feel it's important, but I know it's not something that my guides are going to take interest in. Because our guides are interested. I mean, they love us very much, but they also know that some things here are not as important as they seem. So let's say a scenario like this. So let's say that you are going to be going on a date, and you really, really like the person that you're going to be going on a date with, and you're really hoping that it's going to work. And you're standing there in front of your closet closet before you leave, and you just cannot decide between 3 different outfits that you're going to wear. And so who you're going to call upon, right? So like your spirit guide knows that that person you're going to go on your first date with is your soulmate, and they know that it doesn't matter what shirt you're wearing, that you're still going to have success and get married and everything's going to be fine. And so your spirit guide is just going to stand back, and they're not going to give you guidance as to which shirt to wear or whatever, because they understand that it's not a matter of concern in your soul evolution. However, that is not true for the angels, okay? So the angels, so in a situation like that, you would call on the angels, because the angels may understand that the color of your shirt or whatever doesn't matter either. However, the angels exist just to propagate love and benevolence and to help you feel so good. They exist just to serve the light and expand light, right? So if you call on the angels and say, dear angels, please help me choose the shirt that's going to be the most becoming for me this evening on this date, the angels are going to swoop right down in, and they're going to say, yes, that white shirt, or whatever. They're going to say, oh yes, that's the one. And it's not because it's really going to change your karmic path which shirt you wear, right? It's just that the angels want to help you to feel your best, and they want you to feel so beautiful and wonderful, and they want you to see yourself the way that, they want to see yourself through the eyes of the love of Source, or the love of God, if you want to think of it that way. The angels love helping with everything. The angels love helping with every little detail. I'll call on them for everything from, I'll call on them to help other people. I'll call on them to, when I don't know what to eat, I'll call on them if I just feel a little bit tired. I'll call on them, of course, for help with these kind of projects and with my readings. And oh my goodness, I call on the angels for everything, and they always come through. And anyway, so that's a little bit about the difference between your spirit guides and your angels. And like I said, I am going to be coming out here at the end of this week with a part 2 of this sort of audio presentation, where I'm going to talk specifically about times when you may want to call on your spirit guide by name versus times when you might want to call on the angels. So we're going to deep dive a little bit more into that topic, and I hope you guys are looking forward to that one. But for today, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope it has helped you to remember a little bit more about the angels and about your guides, and I just hope that you can all feel the love and support coming from both your spirit guides and from all the angels that are surrounding us in this moment. And please know that you are never alone, that you always have divine support and divine guidance right there next to you. So thank you all for listening today to this audio presentation. Many, many, many blessings to you on your path, and namaste.